During Trump's last months in the Oval Office in his first term and hopefully last term in office, he was desperate because Exxon wanted to run a pipeline into India and China from the Russian Arctic. So Trump freed Abdul and 5,000 of his lieutenants because he was afraid that Abdul would have jeopardized the pipeline by terrorizing that pipeline. So Trump rolled out the red carpet with his State Secretary Pompeo to give Abdul, freed out of jail, and his soldiers, of Taliban soldiers, 4,000 soldiers. And basically, Trump promised Abdul rule of Afghanistan if Abdul doesn't terrorize the pipeline or jeopardize that pipeline that would have been pumping Russian Exxon Arctic energy through the pipeline that would have fed energy into India and into China. So Exxon, under the Trump administration, not only wanted to supply energy to India and China because of the heavily populated population. They over 1 billion people. India has over more than 1 billion people. China has more than 1 billion people as far as their population is concerned. But also, Trump wanted to undermine Germany's pipelines, meaning under Rex Tillerson as State Secretary under Trump, Exxon wanted to pump Russian energy, joint venture energy of Russian energy, Arctic energy, into Western Europe. So they wanted to undermine Nord Stream 2 and Nord Stream 1. Trump did. When it came to Angela Merkel, relationships with America, Trump wanted to undermine Germany with tariffs under the false pretext it was about tariffs about Mercedes, Benz, and BMWs. But in reality, it was because Exxon wanted to flood energy through their pipelines that was controlled through Ukrainian territory, that they wanted to flow energy and undermine Germany's Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 to monopolize the flow of Arctic Exxon Russian energy with Rosneft and Gazprom, the Russian energy companies, into Western Europe. So between Exxon and BP in the Russian Arctic, they wanted to control the energy supplies of Western Europe. And see, America has recently, America had a monopoly on the world stage with selling petrol, refining or trading oil, and supplying the flow of gasolines that was pegged on the petrol American dollar. So the world recently, before the BRIC organizations started forming, the world was floating on the world reserve currency of America's greenback, that America had a monopoly on floating petroleums throughout the world that was sold by OPEC and sold and bought with American currency, the petrodollar world reserve status of America's greenbacks. So that was the true corruption within the fossil fuel interests of Trump colluding in the Russian Arctic with Exxon to monopolize these ventures, joint ventures between Exxon and Gazprom and Rosneft and BP in the Russian Arctic. So that's why Trump laid down with Abdul and gave him rule over Afghanistan and freed his Taliban soldiers from the prison within his last few months in office, because Trump didn't want Abdul or the Taliban to terrorize the flow of petroleum through that pipeline that would have flooded India with Russian Exxon energy and also China. So I think Exxon was too greedy for their own good under the Trump administration. And they also wanted to undermine Germany, like I said, Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2, because Exxon wanted to cut Germany out of the loop and flood Western Europe with Exxon, Russian joint venture energy, along with BP. They were all in the Russian Arctic colluding to flood Western Europe with oil that was going to be split between Gazprom, Rosneft, ExxonMobil, and BP. That's what Farage caused the Brexit movement, because they thought they was going to become Farage under the Brexit movement, thought that they was going to undermine France and Germany and become economically strong. That's why they caused the Farage under the Trump administration caused the Brexit movement. And Trump was calling to under Steve Bannon to dissolve the European Union. And so all this was going on behind the scenes. As far as America's pipelines, Carl Icahn had refinery plants, gas and petroleum refinery plants that were being impeded under the Obama administration. So when Trump got in office, Carl Icahn paid for play with the Taj Mahal, buying out his casino interests in New Jersey, because Trump was indebted to that casino, bankrupt, and he wanted to get, Carl Icahn wanted to pay for play, so he bought out the bankruptcy by buying out the Taj Mahal, alleviated the bankruptcy that Trump refinanced or rearranged for the Taj Mahal in New Jersey. But what Carl Icahn wanted to do is use the Exxon Alaskan pipeline and Arctic energy and the flow of energy into his gas refinery businesses. So it was Carl Icahn that laid down in bed with Rex Tillerson, and they were the two oligarchs, the two powerhouse oligarchs within the Trump administration, because Trump wanted to start fracking and opening up the pipelines and making Exxon rich. And along with Carl Icahn gas refinery businesses, Rex Tillerson and Carl Icahn were the true powerhouse of oligarchs within the Trump administration. So Trump to this day is like a snake oil con artist, like Rockefeller's father. He has a remedy for everything when it comes to politics and being a dictator. And drill, baby, drill. He's a demented character, and he made the White House into a get-rich Ponzi scheme between him and the oil industries in America. And so Trump has always been compromised over the Russian collusion with Putin. So that's why Trump, with Bill Barr, vetted out the Robert Mueller report. And the Democrats didn't want to speak truth to words because it would have hurt the American oil industries. It would have hurt the petrodollar. It would have panicked the American oil markets if the truth would have come out about Trump and the Russian Arctic. So the Democrats turned a blind eye to the collusion of Trump and Exxon in the Russian Arctic, while when Robert Mueller was investigating and connecting the dots of Trump, as far as the Moscow Tower that Trump wanted to give Putin a free penthouse. To this day, when Lazinski, Trump, because Putin never wanted to give America leverage with Russian Arctic energy, but Putin just used it as an excuse to trip up Americans' foreign affairs and Europe foreign affairs. Meaning he used Trump as a klutz, as America's dim-witted leader, because Putin played Rex Tillerson and Trump like a fool. He led them to believe that they was going to get rich off of Russian Arctic energy, but in reality, Putin was using it to undermine the European Union, to undermine Americans' national politics, and to undermine Lazinski for a second invasion on Ukraine. That's why Trump got impeached a second time, because he was trying to find a stolen server of Hunter Biden in Ukraine, which was disinformation by Russian intelligence to soften up Ukraine for a second invasion. And Trump was dim-witted enough. He was dim-witted enough to fall for the trap, following Russian intel misleading disinformation about finding a stolen computer server in Ukraine. So Trump was blackmailing Lazinski and holding up military aid. And that's exactly what Putin had in mind as a KGB officer. He just wanted to soften up Ukraine for a second invasion and stop the flow of American weapons into Ukraine under the Trump administration. That's why Trump with the national security NSA when they impeached him for blackmailing Lazinski for the stolen computer server, which was disinformation, counterintelligence, reverse intelligence by Russian uh, misleading Trump into believing that Lazinski had dirt on Hunter Biden. And so you got to understand, Putin never wanted to give, because you got to understand, America controlled the world flow of oil in American currency. It was called the Petro World Reserve Status of the greenback, the petrodollar. America controlled the whole flow of petroleum throughout the world, and the supply of you got to understand, the whole world ran on gasoline, and the flow of that petroleum was sold and bought in American currency.